Hey everyone! I did not expect to be back here so soon, but I have to say that in the last couple of days I've gotten hit by different people in my life who are looking for some financial advice on how to start a budget, how to get out of debt, and rather than try and curate a beautifully shot video, I guess, a YouTube video, I'm just gonna vlog about my journey. And let me just start off saying a couple things. I am not a financial planner, I am not debt free, and I am not perfect. I actually started to really pay attention to my finances probably 5 years ago, like really pay attention. I think for a long time I was really trying to pay off debt and it wasn't really going anywhere. So let's go way back. Let's go to, I guess it would have to be my sophomore year of college or second year of college. And I got pulled into helping a friend of mine sign up students for credit cards. And the more people I got to sign up, the more I got commission. Did I also sign up to help one of my colleagues? Absolutely. Did I use that credit card and not pay it back quickly? Absolutely. And that was my first foray into the credit card world. And you know, I was a college student. I was living on my own and I would go to the mall. Well, the mall, I'm in Chicago, so I would go downtown and then go to the quote unquote malls that we have downtown. So there are big buildings that I guess are malls that I would go to, but also freestanding little stores. Freestanding is so relative. Regardless, so I would go to like Express and New York and Company, and you know, the cash register should be like, hey, do you want to sign up for a credit card? You'll get whatever percentage off. Absolutely, sign me up. And I would buy all this stuff. And I think it was grad school when I actually had entered my program and I was a research assistant. And they ended up eliminating the funding for our program. So all of a sudden I was out of work. And I don't come from a family of means. And so I was really supporting myself. And, you know, I found out that we lost our funding pretty close to the beginning of summer. And it was really hard to find anything. And I only needed something temporary because I had a graduate assistant position lined up starting in the fall. So I just needed something to cover the summer. Well, I probably did one of the dumbest things I could ever do, and I'm calling myself dumb, but you do what you have to do, right? You do what you have to do to survive, but I'm talking about this because I want people to realize the implications. So I advanced cash on my credit card. So I could pay rent, I could go get groceries, so that I could go have fun. So that was 3 months. That that advancement is about, I'm assuming it's still the same, about 25% interest. And what was I doing? Paying the minimum balance on a credit card. And what that ends up doing is it doesn't cover your full amount that you actually owe, covering interest. So then just compounds. It's called compound interest. Your balance keeps growing. Even though you're paying the minimum, you're like, I'm paying on time and I'm paying the minimum at the basics, and it's going nowhere. And so I did that, started school, kept on that path, would use my credit card to go on trips, to have fun, to buy every crafty girl supply that I wanted. Well, I started working and, you know, student loans kick in. And that first student loan bill was tough. I decided to go into the nonprofit sector, which I loved every minute of, but it was hard to pay my bills and to pay what I owed in student loans. And so sometimes I wouldn't pay a student loan bill and I would choose to pay my electric bill on time, and other times it'd be vice versa, right? I'd decide what could be late when really none of it should have been late. And I really kept with this pattern for several years of my life. And look, I'm not a dumb girl. I like math. I just chose to ignore the situation. And at some point I realized that I had about $20,000 of stupid credit card debt. And I'm calling it stupid because I have nothing to show for it. These were things like tights at Express, or, you know, my favorite jewelry, or a brand new crafty tool. And yeah, that all brought me joy and it was great. But that's just stuff. And so I think it was when I really had to start applying to live in apartments on my own that I started realizing that, you know, places run credit checks, and you're starting to see that you can't really get the great deal that you want, or when you have to buy a car, you can't get the great interest rate. So all these things were coming to light because I had chosen to ignore a situation that I should have addressed very early on. And so I would say probably about 5 years ago, and I'm not young. I've now been working professionally for almost 20 years. Yeah, almost 20 years. So it's been a while. But so really about 5 years ago, I really started taking control of my finances. But I still wasn't making an impact. And then 2 years ago, I was unexpectedly laid off. Heartbreaking, totally unexpected, completely unprepared for it. I didn't have any savings. I had to dip into my 401k to pay my bills because, again, I'm not a girl born with a silver spoon, and my parents were doing everything they could to support me, which is awesome. They're amazing. But I couldn't really depend on them to help me pay my bills until I found my next gig. And so I had to make some choices, and I didn't want to dip into my 401k, but I told myself, this is a lesson I need to learn. I need to get my stuff in order. And so when I found my new position, I was really excited. I actually went from the nonprofit sector to the for-profit sector, which inherently has a bit of a salary bump just because it is a completely different job market and price point in terms of salaries. So that helped me out immensely, and I will say that was a blessing for me to really just start making a plan for how to get myself together financially. But then I ended up taking a course on a whim from one of the planner groups on Facebook called Planners Gone Wild. And they were doing a 30-day class with a woman named Jen DeFore, and she's actually a local gal, which is really exciting. And she was doing a budgeting class that was based primarily or entirely on the Dave Ramsey method of savings and getting, you know, increasing your personal wealth. And I have to tell you, step number one, and so this is where I wanted to start, is really being very honest with yourself about where you are today. And so step one that she tells you, and I'm sure Dave does too, and which is why she says this, is to pull out a year's worth of your finances. So that means pull down, a lot of us live with a debit card and checking account, so pull down a year's worth of your checking account. A lot of banks let you do that electronically, which is awesome. You can export it into an Excel spreadsheet. Some people need to print it out. Doesn't matter. Pull out a year's worth. If you have credit cards, which thankfully by this point I didn't anymore, pull out statements for the past year. And what you want to do is literally list out every time you spent money. Obviously there's going to be cash that you can't account for because you weren't logging it, but log everything for a year. And what you do is you lay this all out on a spreadsheet, ideally for you, for all of us. You could do this with an app. I'll have to see if I can link some of the suggested apps that you can use that will actually pull your data and sort it for you. I did it manually because I really wanted to see where my money was going. I'm also a big Amazon shopper, so I had to pull down my Amazon list just so I could see what I spent my money on, because what you have to do is you pull down everything that you spent money on, and then you have to categorize it. And you pick categories that make sense for you. So for me, some specific ones for me include craft supplies, planner supplies, eating out. I'm a big foodie. Along with some of those basic things, right? Like car maintenance, utilities, rent. And so you literally have to put every single cent that you spent into a bucket. And what you're gonna do then is tally what's in each of those buckets. So let's say for a year's worth, let's say your rent is $1,000 a month. You've spent $12,000 on rent. But then you're gonna add in, I don't know, security deposits or repairs that you had to do because you caused some damage, or assessment fees if you're in a condo, so things like that. So that would all be in that one bucket, and you do this for every single bucket. So you can imagine a year's worth of expenses is a lot of rows on Excel, but you do it. I think when I did this the first time, and I did this over a year ago, it took me 6 hours, 7 hours, but I planned to do this. And I have the luxury of being able to have devoted an entire day to this. So I spent the whole day manually moving cells to specific different sheets in a Excel document. And so then what I did is I listed all the totals by subject on one piece of paper. And I took whatever amount it said and figured out what percentage of my total yearly income that took up. And I am going to tell you something. When I looked at my numbers, it was something ridiculous, like 35%, 40% of my dispensable income. So this is outside of like my immediate needs of housing and car insurance and things like that. So this was all the extra stuff was to, this is crazy, shopping, planner supplies, craft supplies. I had savings at the end of that year, and I completely had convinced myself that I had saved that on my own. I was on a great path. And you know what I realized? I hadn't saved a single penny. The money that was in that account was probably money from my tax income returns. I had spent every cent that I had made that year. And that blew me away because I'm essentially debt-free. I have student loans. That's all I have because my car is paid off. I rent, nothing is going in late. But I had spent every single penny on stuff that I couldn't even look at. I mean, yes, I have a room of craft supplies, but eating out, craft supplies, and clothes. And we all know, if you're a girl who likes fashion, there are lots of clothes that you don't wear often. I have a room full of craft supplies that I clearly have not used. I just kept buying. And so it was a really hard thing to look at, but it really helped me start taking step one into creating a budget. And so I really just wanted to put that out there. Don't get discouraged when you look at your numbers. The key thing to really starting to get yourself into shape financially is to be honest with yourself. Pay attention to where your money is going. Look at it. Look at every single line and ask yourself, do I need to spend X $100 a month on coffee? Do I? And that's just an example that you see everywhere, but you will start to see your own patterns. For me, it was like silly things like every morning it was coffee, but then every night I was too tired to cook at home, so I would also get dinner out. And if you really think about that, like in the city of Chicago, that adds up. And anywhere, right? It's all relative. Doesn't matter where you are, but when I really look at the numbers, it's terrifying. When I looked at how much I spent on craft supplies and planner supplies a month, and what I could have been sending to student loans so that I could pay off that debt, it blew me away. So just start. Spend a week, spend a couple of days, whatever you can devote to it, but go through a year's worth of your finances. And then really look at it and say, could I cut any of it? You know, could I cut it by 20%? So you get to figure out what you would have per month to spend on that category. Because no one is saying you have to give it all up, but could you give up a little bit and make a big difference? So that's step one. I will go through some of the other steps then, but I wanted to at least get this out there because I was shocked because I've kind of slacked off myself. I have savings now, which is awesome, and they're legit savings, and I'm no longer surprised by unexpected things because I have a different pocket for that kind of stuff. But I I could do better because I really have slacked off. And so I just thought that the world was coming at me saying, hey, you need to focus on this, but so do other people are looking for advice on how to do this too. So I'm gonna put this on my channel. Like I said, I'm no expert, and I can definitely start sending you to other people that I loved and value their opinion on, but I just want to share my journey and hope that some of you will start your journey just by hearing someone like me say, hey, I did it too. And I'm now at a place where my only debt literally is my student loans, but I'm no longer late on anything. Everything is paid on time, and I'm starting to see those student loan balance go down, which I haven't seen probably ever because I wasn't paying attention. So it's all possible. It does take time, but the key thing is to know where you are so you can start. Good luck.